The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
My name is Lawrence Brooks, and you're listening to the Hoop Ball Mavericks podcast. Ever since I started this podcast, people have been asking me for my betting tips. I'll always get asked, who you got, Lakers or Clippers, Brady or Mahomes? And I'll tell you what I tell them. Where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on. That's why I tell people to bet with my bookie. My bookie's rep is rock solid, and we've got all the best odds, contests, and promotions in the business. There's only one place I trust to handle my NBA-related bets. The one sportsbook guaranteed to give me the best lines for Friday night games, Monday night games, and everything in between. And you know me, you know I don't give my stamp of approval easily. To earn it, you've got to be the best at what you do, and my bookie is the best sportsbook out there, period. It's simple. Sign up, enter promo code HoopBall, and get your deposit match way halfway up to $1,000. Head over to my bookie if you want to add a little excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Bet with the best. Bet with my bookie. Hello and good evening, Hoop Ball fans, or I should say good afternoon in this case. I am Lawrence Brooks. I am your Hoop Ball Mavericks host, and we are back to talk about these Mavericks. And I just got to start out by saying, I told you. One thing that I've learned over my years of watching basketball is a lot of times, you know, basketball is about a game of runs and about a law of averages. And when you have quality teams and quality players, you will get bounce back performances, much like we saw last night. Now, after the beatdown they took against Portland the game prior, there was just a lot of chatter, and there's always questions and this and that about, you know, what the team needs, what they should do, how guys are playing. And like I mentioned on the previous pod, sometimes bad games just happen. For whatever reason, it's not your night, you don't have your legs, maybe you had something bad to eat, you didn't get your usual nap in. There's always something to just point to when you have a bad game, and it just happens. And myself, as I've mentioned before on this podcast, being a former basketball player, I just know, like, some days the ball just doesn't go in the basket. Some days you're just not defending at a high rate. Some days you're just not as locked in as you would like to be, although you're trying to be. But we're all human, and so things happen. Life gets in the way. You're not going to go undefeated. You're not going to shoot 100% from the field every game. And so you're going to have these lulls in the season, or, you know, in the season with games where you just aren't at your best. And so that's what happened. And so I was very confident that they would turn it around and have a better game. And what do you know? They came back and won. Now, let me say this about the win, too. Now, I get the fact that it was a rout. Like, they blew the Blazers off the floor. Some of that has to do with the Blazers being tired and now the script being flipped on them, where this wasn't one of their best games. But at the same token, you had to expect that the Mavericks, at the very least, were going to come back and show an effort to play hard. They were, you know, as a team with pride, you're going to be somewhat embarrassed by a performance like that. So why would you not come out and show what you have? So first and foremost, Luca Doncic. I mean, I even live tweeted. I said I'm running out of things to say about him, because we know he's amazing. We know he's a superstar. We know he's been a prodigy since early age. I mean, he played his first professional game at the age of 16. MVP of the EuroLeague. I mean, his accomplishments just go on and on. He has proved himself again and again and again, and last night was no different. And one of the things that's most impressive to me about Luka's season overall so far is how bad he started out shooting the basketball from three to start the season. He was at, I want to say, under 10%. And now he's shooting 37% on the season, and he's at like 43% since February. I mean, these are amazing numbers and an amazing leap for a guy who seemingly didn't have his shooting stroke to start the season. And it's not as if he's been a great 3-point shooter to begin with, but it's clearly an improvement on his part. And for a guy that handles the ball as much as he does, and for a guy who's taking unassisted threes as much as he does, that's an amazing, amazing stat and an amazing percentage to shoot from three. And it's a large reason why they've been able to win as regularly as they have since being fully intact. So Luka's numbers on the night, I mean, he only played 29 minutes. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter. He had 37 through three quarters, which tied Dirk for the most points ever through three quarters for a Dallas Mavericks player. And anytime you can be mentioned in Dirk's class, I mean, what more can you say? A Dallas Maverick legend, all-time greatest player to put on that jersey. And Luka is right behind him, and his legend just continues to grow. He was 8 for 9 from the three-point line. He made his first 8 threes. First 8, and he came out after last game and he spoke about how he was pissed that they lost the game before. Not that they lost, but the manner in which they lost, where they just pretty much went cold and the door was shut on them in the fourth quarter by just playing, basketball that just wasn't great. The game was going tit for tat until the fourth quarter, and they just could not sustain everything they were doing. And I've mentioned several times how I think the overall team, the shooting percentages has worked against them because they've been one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. But with Luka shooting the ball as well as he has, that's been very helpful. And so when you get into these games where you have a lead and you've been shooting the ball, fairly well from the perimeter, and then you get a team like Dallas who then everything dries up, then you have these situations where teams come back on you. Or, as I mentioned, Dallas is trying to make a comeback and they can't throw the ball in the basket. And that's all because they have inconsistent shooting as a team. So tonight they put it all in this game against Portland. They put it all together. I mean, everyone was clicking on all cylinders in terms of just what they were doing. You got a bounce back performance from Josh Richardson, who I knew he would bounce back because he's a prideful guy and he's somebody that I classify as a dog, and I knew he would come back and have a better game. He ended up with 21 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. He was 2 of 4 from the three-point line, didn't miss a free throw. He only had 3 of those, only missed 3 shots overall. But one thing that I was really impressed with is just his overall aggressiveness. Aggressiveness doesn't always mean that you're going to play your best or you're going to shoot your best. But I just like guys that don't fold and walk into a corner and don't want to play anymore because they're afraid that they'll continue to mess up. No, Josh Richardson came out with the idea in mind that I'm in attack mode all night. And I love that for him. I love the fact that he came out and he just set a tone and an energy that he's just going to come out and he just has more pride than that. He's a competitor. So I love to see that. Dorian Finney-Smith, who was back, congratulates him to the birth of his son. He was back in the lineup. He ended up with 13 points on the night. He was 50% from 3 of 6. He had 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He was active on defense, 4 of 8 from the field overall. But his activity level was noticeable on defense too, hounding guys on the perimeter, being active in the passing lanes, just getting deflections, not necessarily recording a steal, but just making life difficult for everyone that he was checking for this game. Dwight Powell, 11 points. He was 4 of 4 from the field. He had 3 lobs in this game. Also 1 steal and 1 block. Now, I've been one that's talked about Dwight Powell all season as a guy who needed a little patience. He was a little bit of a rim runner and a guy who could occasionally make a three-pointer last year to stretch the floor. His athleticism was something that he struggled with this season, and I think it's all because of the fact that he was trying to recover from an injury. Now, tonight might have been one of the better nights that I've seen him. I don't know if this means that he's turning a corner in his recovery, or if it's just a good night, if it was just a good night for his body. But I really liked what I saw from him. He was 1 for 1 from the 3-point line. I mean, as a team, they shot 51% from 3. Like, they completely blew the Blazers off the floor. They went on a 38-15 run in the third quarter, closed this game down. There was nothing else to see. They put this game away, and it was good to see them have a bounce back win. So that just goes to show you how well they were playing, considering they shot 51% from the three, 55% from the field overall. Now, as we're talking about scoring, moving on to Porzingis. Now, again, as I have said, you're going to go through ups and downs in a season. You're not always going to shoot your best. You're not always going to play your best. And this is no different for Kristaps Porzingis. He was 3 of 7 in this game. One of the things about him over the last few games, I would like to say, that's kind of, I don't want to say alarming, but it's something of note, is he's shot, for the guy who's their second leading scorer and a guy that they run a lot of offense through as their second leading scorer, he has less than 40 shot attempts in the last 3 games. And I know they've been kind of spreading the money around, so to speak, but that's a little odd considering, a guy who's averaging 20 points a game, that he's had less than 40 shot attempts in the last 3 games. And I mean, he only shot 7 times in this game. He was 2 of 4 from the 3-point line. He made all of his free throws, and he had 2 blocks, 8 rebounds, 1 steal. And so while his scoring and his offense has been in a little bit of a rut, he has been on an upward trend defensively. And like I said, again, he's 25 years old. He's struggled with durability a little bit. So it's also impeded on his development, on his everyday development just as a player. Now, there's some things he can work on because, like I said, some of the things that leaves him vulnerable to nights where he's not as involved is the fact that he's not much of a playmaker. And being a finisher means you have to rely on someone else to get you looks or your opportunities. And when you have to rely on someone else, those opportunities can go elsewhere. Because if Tim Hardaway's hot, or Josh Richardson has it going, or Jalen Brunson is making plays, and you're just a finisher, that just puts you in position as a guy who, it could be your night and it could not be your night. It just all depends on the way the ball is flowing and how they're defending you. So I don't want to get on him too much because I know he'll turn this around. As I said, the Porzingis we saw in the bubble is a guy that we can easily see every night, but it's just going to take time. It's just going to take time. And I think that you have to have, if we've learned anything else from this season with the Mavericks, patience is important because everything's not going to go their way. But the one thing that they do well is they adjust on the fly and they figure it out at some point. It doesn't always mean it's going to equate to a win, but every time they lose, it's not who can we trade? And every time they win, it's not we're going to the championship. You just have to ride the roller coaster of the season. Yes, can they get better in some areas? Of course. They could use another playmaker. They can use another rim protector. They can use another versatile wing. Obviously, every team could use some of these guys. But for the Mavericks, the roster they have currently constructed, this is likely going to be unless they find someone on the buyout market, they don't have a lot of trade value in the guys that are currently on the roster unless you get rid of Porzingis, which, again, I say do not. Keep him and continue to add on to this team. But everything else that they have, and obviously they're not getting rid of Luka, you're just going to have to ride with what you have. And what they have is enough to be a quality team. It's just not a championship team. But this is a playoff team. This is a top 8 Western Conference team. You got the good Tim Hardaway last night to an extent. He had 22 points. He was 4 of 9 from the field. He was only 1 of 5 from 3, which was, he's been scorching of lately from the 3-point line. But again, he gets hot with the best of them. He gets cold with the best of them. You even had Maxi Kleber, who was 2 of 3 from the 3-point line. He only had 8 points and 7 rebounds, and it's a workmanlike effort. He had 1 steal, but again, you're just getting contributions from everyone. In the games, they hold teams under 100 points. I know that they've been on the upswing in terms of defensive. They just look more cohesive and active defensively. They look more assertive in what they're trying to get accomplished. And they've held teams, I want to say in their last 14 games or so, they've held someone to less than 100 points 5 times. And when they do that, they win. But the problem is it's just really tough to do that often, especially with the team that they have. But that just goes to show you their capabilities. They can defend when they're locked in. It just depends on when they're locked in. Now, obviously, of course, like I said, some of this game can be attributed to the fact that the Blazers were playing on tired legs, and that happens. But the Mavericks also played really, and when you're scoring and you're getting the ball out of the basket instead of missing shots and constantly having to be in transition defensively, where you have to locate and find an assignment that maybe isn't yours, it's much easier to set your defense when you're scoring and the team has to take the ball out of the basket, which obviously helps you solidify everything you want to do. So when you're clicking like that offensively, your defense is obviously going to pick up as well. And so this game was a great illustration of that this won't happen every game, but if they can just competitively keep teams under 50% shooting and they can continue to keep teams hovering around 100 points, they will win a lot more games, a whole lot. But with Luka playing out of his mind, it won't matter much anyway, because if he's going to play like this, he's hitting his step back three-pointer on a regular. I just don't see many teams being able to beat them. And again, they've been one of the hotter teams in the NBA. So if he keeps this up individually, he will single-handedly push them up the rankings or up the Western Conference standings. So this was a great win because obviously with the Blazers being in 6th place at 25-17, Spurs being in 7th place at 22-17, and then the Mavericks in 8th place at 22-19, you have the Warriors breathing down their back. They don't have any time to try to rest guys and get cute like they did a few games ago, which I was really upset about because they should have beat OKC, but I'm not going to harp on it. I just think that they're in a great spot to continue finding their rhythm after having such a horrible start to the year. So I was really encouraged by what I saw last night, not necessarily with the win itself, but the bounce back effort from everyone just coming out and just not wanting to take this situation as we're just going to go 0-2 on this road trip. No, they came to try to get a win and they actually got one. So if they continue to keep this up, hopefully some of the other teams can lose, and they will need some help. That's the only problem that you run into with this type of situation is you end up in this situation, and now you need a little help from the teams in front of you, because if you beat them, you still need to have them lose more games than just losing to you. And obviously you can't play the teams in front of you every night. So you're just hoping that you get a couple of teams that find a cold streak while the Mavericks stay on a hot streak. And so they have the Timberwolves on Wednesday, a rare 2 days off. And then they turn around, they have the Pelicans on Saturday. And then they turn around and have the Celtics the following Wednesday. These 3 games are very winnable. Hopefully they can get those. The Boston game will be a little tougher. Pelicans have been playing a little better, but the Mavericks are better than the Pelicans. So this should be an opportunity to get a win. And definitely against the Timberwolves is an opportunity to get a win. None of these are guaranteed because obviously you saw they lost to OKC. But if they're playing like they have been playing over the last 4 weeks, this should be a win that they put in their bag. And they need to make up for that OKC loss. Like they cannot afford to lose more games to teams that they should beat. So the games that they should win, Timberwolves and Pelicans, those need to be wins. Because again, they're in 8th place. And at the worst, they'll be in the play-in situation for the playoffs. But you want to just be in the playoffs. You don't want to mess around with being in 8th, hovering around 8th, 9th, 10th place, and then having to do a play-in situation. Solidify your place in the playoffs. And the only way to do that is to continue racking up wins. And so they need these too. And hopefully they get them because they'll need them all the way down the stretch. I mean, like I said, these games literally are coming every other day. And when it gets to the end of the season, all you'll look up and see is that, oh, we lost on Wednesday night versus this team, or we should have beat that team. Those tiebreakers are important. So hopefully they're able to pull those together. And then last night also, I was really happy about the fact that they won the rebounding battle. They don't win the rebounding battle every night. They are one of the lesser rebounding teams in the NBA. So when they have a night where they rebound, I'm always going to give them a round of applause. And so I was really happy to see that. The rookies who even got in the game last night. I mean, the starters were out the entire fourth quarter. Last night was a rarity across the board for the Mavericks. But in a great sense, or in a great way, it was good to see some of those guys get in. Nate Hinton, Tyler Bay. You even had a little bit of Josh Green as well. Those guys who are all clearly back from the G League all got an opportunity to get in the game last night because the Mavericks blew them out. And so hopefully they can get some more opportunities going down the stretch. But with especially with some of these games being lesser games or games that they should win, quote unquote, maybe you get a couple of these guys to get a little more playing time. I like seeing these guys. I think Nate Hinton and Josh Green and Tyler Bay all can contribute in some way. But obviously with who's in front of them, that won't happen, and I won't dive into that. So, again, thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe and download the podcast on all streaming platforms. You can find me on Twitter at LBSaidit, that's LBSAIDIT, and at HoopBallMavs, that's HOOPBALLMAVS. Let's get this win on Wednesday. You guys have a great week. Talk to you soon. Go Mavs.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.